We're going to move now to decoding. This is the third step. Our first step was to recognize the unsaid. The second step was to seek to understand. And this third step is decode. I hope you're hearing that because I'm going to test you on the next one. Decoding, what is that? Anybody here get feedback from someone and immediately you go, oh, I got to go do something about that right now? Because if I don't, they have to know I like them, they have to know I care about it, they have to, right? Okay, here's what I want to say about that. Most of us want to act, we have an affinity, we want to go do something really fast. Here's the problem with that. If you move too quickly, we mostly tend to mess things up because we haven't thought it through. What decoding is that we process what we hear, feedback, requests from somebody, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. We process it. We do it by ourselves. We go do research with our teams. There's a lot of different things that we can do. As I think about that company I was talking about in the first step, where they finally look at their data and they decide to seek to understand with listening sessions and surveys and importing all these things with their leaders. When they decided to decode, they brought more people in. So now they were more inclusive. They brought more employees from all different parts of the organization to look at this employee feedback and to decide what should we do next. And so after they decided to act upon things, then they could go back and decide to do take the action and what that was going to happen. But before that, they didn't want to be too fast to act, or else it could be the wrong thing. So you want to make sure it's not the wrong. So decoding is a very important step. It is where we break things down. It is where we decipher and decide what we do next. Here's the thing. If we don't decode and we respond too quickly and we mess things up, well, there's that one message of oh gosh, you didn't even help me when I came to you or hurt me, you left me worse off. But if I decode, what do you think it says to people? It says, I respect you and I value you more than you ever thought. And do you think that level of respect or value leaves it feeling magnetic, like they want to stay with you? Or do you think it makes them run away? Probably magnetic, right? They want to be around people who do that with them, who make them feel respected and valued. So as we're thinking about keeping team members, keeping coworkers, customers, partners, all of the people, think about how magnetic you are. Or do you make people run away? It is something to consider, and guess what? The exciting part is that you have the power to influence it. You don't have to wait for anybody to give you permission for that. So what do you say to the person who gives you feedback and you want to learn how to decode the right way? Okay, someone provides you feedback and you say, oh my gosh, Shelley, whew, that was a lot. And I just need to take a day or two to process that. In fact, I might want to go talk to my manager about it or my team about it just to make sure, because I just need to know what's happening to see if this is a big issue for everybody. And then you go do that. And then you have to do this one thing. Don't forget, come back to her when you told her you're coming back to her. Don't you tell her you're going to go do something and then you don't do it, because now you just lost all of the things we just did up to this point. This is a cycle, and we have to see this cycle through. Decoding is an important point. Okay, now before we go here now, let's do a little rewind. Let's do a little review. The first step, I'm going to have you say this with me. The first step was to recognize and say, I hear voices. The second step was to seek to understand. The third, we just went over, and it's in front of you still. Cheaters. Right there. Decode, right? And now we're going on to action. And action this is where what they said to you, the voices they used, and the action you take for them says, I am finally being heard here. I am important to this person. I am not just a number on a spreadsheet. I'm much more than that, because the person is showing me that in the evidence of how they interact with me. I don't know. For me, I think it's exciting because I don't have to look for a budget. I don't have to ask someone for permission to do this. I get to choose to be this person every day. And if I mess it up, I mess it up. Nobody to blame. But I think it's exciting to know that if we take that action, and people want to know, do we have to act? And so when you go from that decoding phase where you're telling them, I want to come back to you and see what we do, and you come back to them and say, here is what we're going to do based upon your feedback, your request. That's action. Here's what we're not able to do, but maybe here's a compromise. Or here's what we've already done on your behalf. It says, again, it imparts a level of importance. It makes you more magnetic. Who here wants to be magnetic? People want to be around you. Okay, who here wants to just I don't want to be around any people. I don't want to push them away. Yeah, no, yeah. when I think about all of the action that client took that was like, didn't look at their survey from day one, had the whole culture team put together, created all these committees to handle the things, decided in a strategic way, like, what are we gonna do next? How are we gonna act to make sure our culture gets better? They did it together, but they did it in a way where they followed this process step by step by step. That merger early on, when there was like all these layoffs happening and no one was communicating. Everybody was fearful. Mistrust was everywhere. They didn't follow this step at all, and unfortunately, again, they lost a lot of customers and employees as a result. So we have to know that this cycle means something. It has been tested over time with organizations, with leaders. I've been doing this work for a long time, and I want you to know this works. I've seen it. I've seen it in small organizations and large organizations, and I've seen it with individual people. I've seen it as a leader of people who I've been leading people for 25 years, and I've seen those people, when I leave, say, you are one of the very few people who took the time to listen to me. And that made all the difference. All right, so when we look at this final step, this is where most of us fall down. Decoding and closing the loop are, when we look at this cycle, is the part that's a little choppy for most of us. The closing the loop is this. So let's say you've had a conversation with someone, they've given you feedback. And you're like, I'm working through that cycle. I'm doing a good job, like Heather says. And I've taken action. And then that's it. I have never gone back to the people who provided the request, who gave me the feedback, the complaint, the whatever it is. I never went back to them to let them know what I've done about it. So they're kind of left hanging. It's like crickets chirping, right? We want to be the people who stop the crickets from chirping because we want to be the one who goes back to them. So this is where you take the feedback that happened and you just go back to them in the end and say, here's what we're going to do about it.